Welcome to This Week in West Hempstead, sponsored this week by I&D, your local kosher supermarket. Here are your hosts, David and Norm. Take it away, guys.
Thanks, Dan, and welcome, Norm.
How you doing, Dave?
I'm doing fine. We've got a little Indian summer going on today, but besides that, everything's really fantastic.
Yeah, it's humid.
So, just diving right into the stories, this past Sunday was 9/11, 9/11 Memorial. It was the 21st anniversary of 9/11, and Norm, you attended the event that was sponsored by the local civic association.
Right, the West Hempstead Community Support Association coordinated really a memorable event. We dedicated a memorial there in 2016, and every year at this time, the entire community turns out. Boy Scouts, both the police department, both fire departments, every politician, from state, city, town. Legislators. It was very respectful, beautifully done, and they rang bells for the 11 people who lived in this town who perished.
So, you also took some amazing photographs, which we put up in a photo gallery up on the website. And, what did it feel like to be that close up to, what was going on?
So I know a lot of the folks who were up there. I know some of the politicians, and I know some of the people from the fire department. They're volunteer fire departments, so they're guys from our community. And they all turned out in uniform in the pouring rain. They put up tarps, and everybody, kind of snuggled together to be what was a very respectful ceremony. And I was happy to be there, and I would encourage everybody else to come out next year when it's decent weather, I hope, and just participate for the 15, 20, 25 minutes that it takes to remember those that are lost.
Yeah, it's a very, very special memorial, obviously a very special day. For those of you in the community who maybe not aware of the memorial, when you're in Hall's Pond, take a walk and visit the memorial. Spend some time there. It's pretty impactful.
Yeah, it has a piece of steel from the World Trade Center, and it has the names of the members of our community. So, it's beautifully done. And of course, the backdrop is Hall's Pond.
Yeah. So. It's back to school time, and fortunately, I'm well past going back to school, but I do see the school buses, kind of jamming the streets, and kids from all ages going to all sorts of schools all over the place. It's really nice to see.
I think it's football time.
Yeah, well, it's football time, so that would be meaning that
the Rams are up.
The Rams are up, and we're not even talking about the Los Angeles Rams. We're talking about the West Hempstead Rams. They played last week, and they won. Hold on a second. They won by a score of 28-6 against Seaford.
Oh, nice.
So it sounds like they were a pretty dominant victory there.
We're off to a good start.
So they're a 1-0 start, and next Saturday they're playing Oyster Bay.
All right.
And Oyster Bay lost their first game, so not so good. So this is hopefully we can have the Rams jump to a 2-0 start. Certainly better than the New York Jets, and we probably don't want to go there. For those of you who are still Jet fans, I feel very sorry for you. So also in the news, I want to talk a little bit about what's been going on in Malverne, our neighboring town. And Malverne had a street name change that I think is really interesting. They had a street in Malverne, and hold on, let me just get the paperwork here.
I think I can fill in a little bit of color for you, since
Dan?
I did a little Googling on this. There is a street, or was a street, known as Lindner Place. There's a school on that block, and Mr. Lindner was apparently very important in the development of the town of Malverne.
Correct. He was a farmer, and he was sort of the what might have been considered the mayor of Malverne at that time.
What he unfortunately also turned out to be is a dedicated member of the KKK, acting, according to this is a petition somebody ran to get the street name changed, as exalted Cyclops of the KKK, presiding over cross burnings and organizing a Klan march in Freeport that drew 2,000 supporters.
Wow, what an incredible honor.
Yeah, holy
Cyclops.
crap.
Did we know we had
and
Cyclops in our background?
Yeah, on top of that, he was also he held the title of the Great Titan of the New York State Klan. I mean, this guy was no slouch. I mean, he was like really up there in the hate category.
Unbelievable.
And what's really unbelievable is the fact that his name has been out there in Malverne for all this time, and now
and I assure you, most people had no idea this is Mr. KKK.
I'm a historian by interest and training, and I didn't know this.
Yeah,
so.
I think this broke on social media. I may have this wrong, but I think someone posted on Instagram something about the street name. It then got ran up the flagpole, so to speak, in Malverne. And, it seemed like a very obvious decision. They spent a little bit of time on the naming because there was a bunch of different names that were proposed. But outside of that, I mean...
It's a given, yeah. It's an easy one. And that's what you can do when you put together a community response.
So what have they actually settled on in exchange for Mr. KKK?
So we're looking at Acorn Way is the new name that the village board voted last week. So that's what it is.
Okay.
I want to switch to a subject that's, it's a little bit sticky, and it's actually from today's headlines, certainly both from the Sunday New York Times headlines as well as an article that appeared in Newsday. And it's about the Regents, New York State Regents, and certain schools and certain districts are really not ranking at all in education level, and the state is going to start to clamp down. So I think by December 1st, if certain schools don't meet criteria, they're going to be facing disciplinary action, I'm sure budget, financial consequences as well.
But the good news is that our neighborhood is up to speed.
I think so. And, that's why this is not a big story for us. Right. And I think we're fortunate about that.
We should be.
We do have some really fine private and public schools in town and in the surrounding communities. And all of them, would be passing the Regents with flying colors.
Sure.
There is certainly an interest, I would think. We are paying our taxes to the state. The state is then passing that on to educational districts. And I would certainly think that even though our schools are good, we have an interest in making sure the other ones are up to at least a basic level.
Yeah, right? And, there's also an interesting undertone in the community that I picked up on social media a little while ago, which is that, at what point and at what level does the state start to mandate or to dictate to private schools what criteria they should be teaching, or, kind of getting into some of the subjects that may be more mainstream in public schools, but now, will the state and will the regions start to enforce it? So far, I think it's a little bit of sort of like mass hysteria, and there's no reason to think that that's the direction. But I know there's a lot of people in the private schools, both here and perhaps in the 5 towns as well, that have some concerns that, the state is going to start to move in that direction.
Well, I think that there should be some basic standards for reading and writing, and certainly for math. So those basic skills you would think you'd want your neighbors to have as well as you. So I don't think it's unreasonable for the state to set a minimum bar.
Yeah, for sure. And I can tell you in all my years at News 12, and not only covering Long Island, but really the tri-state area, it was very well known which school districts were the underperforming and, which specific schools, because, news people, you always wanted to go back to those schools over and over and over again. And just nothing has been done year over year over year. Yet many of these schools are taking, significant state aid, and they're just not delivering.
Right. So here's an incentive.
Yeah.
The state's going to ratchet it up a bit.
Yeah. And I don't personally have a problem with that. I think, we always want to make sure we're getting what we're paying for. So I'm not personally disturbed by the idea that, look, let's figure out what those minimum standards are, and if you're going to take state aid, you should meet those.
Absolutely. And, let's see where this goes. And perhaps it really did take the New York Times and Newsday and other major news organizations to kind of expose this story, which really has been exposed many times before, but perhaps in a much more, grandiose way, with some other negative implications to that. But we're not.
We're not going there.
We're not going there. We just don't have time, and I know we probably lost. Three-quarters of the audience has already fallen asleep. I really apologize, but I thought it was an important subject. You know what, Norm? Let's transition out of this into some of the local happenings in the community, because there's always stuff going on in West Hempstead. Summer's over. You don't have those free events all over Hempstead itself. What do you got that's local?
There is local, but I do want to mention that they have a couple of seminars coming up, which are important, and they're worthwhile doing. One is the Alzheimer one, which I announced last week, the tax reduction one, which is tomorrow, the 14th. That's over at Echo. And now they announced Passport Days in West Hempstead. Actually, it's in the Town of Hempstead Town Hall. Mm-hmm. You can walk in there if you make a reservation. There's a phone number, which I'll give you in a minute. It's Saturday, October 1st and Sunday, October 16th. They'll help you through the whole application to get a renewal of your passport or a new one for you or your kids. And just if you download the forms, don't sign it. It has to be signed in front of one of the passport people. So
let me just call out here that, by the way, you can go down to the Town of Hempstead during the week as well, but they've done this very helpful thing of setting it up on the weekend. So if you can't get away during the week, you can, but absolutely you have to make an appointment, or they're
right. So it's on a Saturday and Sunday, and it's 516-812-3100. You must have an appointment to do this.
And let me point out as well that if you just go to the local West Hempstead post office, I believe with an appointment, they will also take your form, they'll take your picture, and they'll submit it. I think the difference when you do it through the post office, the expectation that you'll get it, quicker, I think is minimal. I think this is a great organized program.
Yeah, they streamlined
it. It's really great. So what? If you've held off getting your passport done, take advantage of this. Go down.
Right. And there are events going on local, hyper local. So Creative Corner has their open mic thing on Monday nights, and on Wednesday nights they have jazz guys come down and play. And there's stuff going on at the cafe and the bar on Thursday nights. And must have something happening there. So
is that the community cafe you're talking
Community
about?
Cafe, yeah, on Hempstead Avenue. So I'm going to take a tour of them this week, and maybe we'll have something to report on them next week. I think there is nightlife here. It's hard to believe in West Hempstead.
You know what? Honestly, that could be a whole separate series, In Search of Nightlife in West Hempstead. I mean,
in case you don't have your own nightlife.
In this neighborhood, there's not a lot to do, and it looks like the G has some interesting things going on. The community cafe is trying, but I'm telling you that you go to the community cafe, you might as well just be going back into like 1972.
It's Cheers.
It's well beyond Cheers. I think it may be more like All in the Family.
Well, I haven't been there, but I heard that people bring in barbecue food. The owner pays for it. The drinks are flowing. People are having a good time. We'll find out.
All right. Hey, listen, Norm, you're going to be on it.
On the road.
You're our entertainment correspondent until we actually find an entertainment correspondent.
Write that down so I remember.
Great. You know what? So thank you everyone for hanging in. We've covered a lot of different subjects this week, but it's been great. There's a lot of follow-up subjects that we got going on now that the kids are back in school. It's exciting times. You still just remember you still got the outdoor pool is still open for like the next week or so. Have a great week, everyone, and we'll join you next week.
Take care. Stay well.
Thanks, everyone, for watching. As always, if you'd like to sponsor this or our other programs, reach out at sales@westhempsteadecho.com.